Okay. Hello, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to tonight's Planning and Development Control Committee meeting. My name is Councillor Omid Miri. I'm chair of the committee. Just like to remind all participants of a few housekeeping points before we begin. The fire exit is towards the back in the lift lobby and down the stairs, and there are no fire alarm tests scheduled for tonight. And the toilets are also at the back in the lift lobby. So move on to item 1, which is apologies for absence. And we have apologies from Councillor Adrian Pascu-Tilbury and from the Vice Chair, Councillor Chabot Berdier. That can be noted, please. Moving on to item 2, declaration of interest. Do members have any declarations of interest? No declarations of interest? Okay, thank you very much. And now we move on to item 3, which is minutes of the meeting held on 7th of November 2023. Are the minutes of the previous meeting agreed? Okay, great. If that can be noted as well, please. Just like to lay some ground rules before we begin. There'll be no crosstalk or interruption at tonight's meeting. So when officers are answering questions or when committee members are asking questions, I ask that no one interrupt so that every single committee member can hear every answer in full and every question in full. And with that, we will move on to item 4, which is Public Car Park, Kuma Place. And can I ask Roy Asagba Power, the presenting officer, to introduce the report whenever he's ready? Thank you. Nearly there? Yeah, nearly there? Okay. Any second now. Okay. Thank you for your patience. Roy, if you'd like to go ahead with the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Apologies, technical problems. First and foremost, just to draw members' attention to the addendum for this item. There are three minor items, minor changes to the report. Starting from the beginning, this is the public car park at Cooma Place. The proposal involves a multifunctional single-storey cycle hub comprising three elements: a 20 cycle parking spaces, 4 storage units for the market traders on North Inn Road, and a
I just ask for there to be no sort of shouts or interruptions from the audience. Roy, if you could please carry on.
Okay.
Can all members of the committee hear Roy? If you could just speak slightly closer to the mic, please. Thank you.
So this relates to the public car park in Cooma Place. It's in relation to the multifunctional single-storey building comprising three elements: the 20 cycle parking spaces, 4 storage units in connection with the market traders in North Inn Road, and a last mile delivery hub, including 1 cargo space. And there are also some other ancillary elements, including a rain garden and the reconfiguration of the parking spaces and a new crossover on Cooma Road. This image here just shows the location of the site. So the site is highlighted in red on the sort of north-west corner of the plan here. And it's the car park, and the entrance fronts Cooma Place. It also has a frontage to Cooma Road, and also has a frontage Cooma Mews. The site itself is in the Fulham regeneration area and within the Fulham town centre. This plan, you can see North Inn Road with the market traders areas highlighted in blue, and there's a listed building highlighted in orange and a building of merit highlighted in green. This is an aerial shot of the site. So what you can see is the site obviously in red. You've got the listed building to the south. You've got North Inn Road to the east, and there's number 4 Cooma Place in this location here, adjacent to the site, just to the east. And then opposite the site on Cooma Road, you've got properties in Barbara Castle Close, which comprise a mix of flats and terraced houses. And then to the north, you've got a service yard. This image is just really trying to sort of draw attention to what's happening at street level. So you've got the site highlighted in red in the north image, and then you've got on the right-hand side, going clockwise from the top, you've got the entrance to the car park in Cooma Place, and beyond that you can see the building which is in the foreground, which is number 4 Cooma Place, and beyond that is the tops of the buildings fronting North Inn Road. The image in the southeast corner is the Cooma Road side of the site, and on the opposite side of the road you have the properties at Barbara Castle Close. And then the image in the southwest corner is the northern part of the site where the proposed building would be located, and you can see the service yard in the background. This image is just showing the two sites images, if you like. One at the north, which shows the existing arrangements with 21 parking spaces with the cycle stands highlighted in green. Kuma Place is on the southern side of the site, and Kuma Road is on the sort of western side of the site. And then the image on the right-hand side shows the footprint of the proposed development. So you've got the single-story structure highlighted here with the different colours. You've got the sort of purple, which is the last mile delivery. You've got the sort of orange colour, which is the 4 market traders storage units. And then you've got the cycle storage units in the other area. And then outside of that, you've got some landscaping proposed, and you've got those that's highlighted in green to the sort of western frontage, and then in the middle of the site. And you've also got a drop curb, which is created for convenience and access to the new structure. This is what's being proposed. So you can see on the left-hand side is a kind of the image of the single-story structure within the car park, and you've got the sort of existing cycle hire facilities which will be retained, and then a more closer image of that structure is on the right-hand side of that image. And you can see there's an entrance where the storage to the cycles would be, and then you've got 4 entrances to the market storage units. And the bottom image is just the rear and side elevations. This is just an illustration from the drawing pack that we've been provided with, which gives an indication of what's proposed. So you have like a gated sort of entrance here, and you've got some, if like a vinyl finish surface, which has images of cyclists on it. This is a structure that was approved in 2021 by committee. It's a similar sort of structure. It's actually underneath the Hammersmith flyover. A similar sort of facility that's been proposed here. There was a lot of consultation before the application was submitted with the various North End Road market traders, local businesses and residents, and they identified a need for a cycle hub and storage facilities. Since the application has come in, there's been consultation, statutory consultation, and we've had 206 letters go out to neighbours, and we had 1 letter of objection raising concerns about an unpleasant view. In terms of the proposal against the policies in the plan, in principle, the proposals are considered acceptable, provide sustainable means of transport and facilities for the North End Road market. Design, this single-story structure is not going to have any harm on the heritage assets that are nearby. There's no harm in terms of residential amenity. There's certainly no harm in terms of public transport. There's a reduced number of parking spaces, lower emissions, more sustainable means of delivering last mile. Secure by design matters are secured by condition. The trees that are adjacent to the site would not have any undue adverse impact, and overall, the lower emissions from the proposed last mile accords with our climate change SPD. So officers are recommending that this application be approved. Thank you very much.
Okay, Roy, thank you very much. Now we move on to questions for officers. Do we have any questions? Yes, Councillor Carmel.
Find the button. Yes, I grew up round the corner from here, and the site has an interesting history, and I've seen the very sad...
Councillor, if you could just bring the mic slightly closer to you. Yeah.
I've seen the very sad decline of the North End Road market over the last 50 years, whereby there was, I think, at one stage, an 8-year waiting list for a stall. And indeed, at the back of this car park, there used to be market traders storage, which those of really long memories may remember. I had reason to walk back down North End Road Market the other day, and only about 20% of the pitches on the day that I walked down were actually in use. And I'm just wondering what the demand is. Not possibly strictly a planning issue, what the demand is for market traders storage, because they used to have the big trolleys, and the ones that are displayed in there are nowhere near wide enough to fit them. And I just wondered if what the result of the consultation was with what remains of the market traders to say that there is a demand or this sort of thing. And indeed, when the ones were removed from the back of this Cooma Place car park, I think early 90s, I would say, that significant compensation was then paid to the existing market traders while they had to locate somewhere to put their trolleys. And now we're providing at council expense, in my opinion, inferior but replacement market trader storing. And I just wondered if I could have some sort of explanation as to the reasoning behind this.
Through the chair. In short, there's been a lot of investment over the last 4 years in North End Road. Generally, the public realm is obviously not in its best form, but there's been a lot of investment to try and improve that. And as part of that, in recognition that the market contributes to the well-being of the locality, and it's part of the fabric, I think the key thing is that the funding that's been sought has been sought from the GLA, and the GLA have agreed that this funding that was available for a two-storey community facility is now being repurposed for this facility, which is recognised and needed by the market traders themselves, as well as some of the local businesses and residents who were consulted as part of our consultation that was carried out with colleagues in our economy department who are keen to sort of see the reinvestment in the locality.
Do we have any idea what percentage of the pitches are currently being let on North End Road Market? Because I may have just wandered down on a bad day, but with 80% vacant on the day I was down there.
I couldn't possibly comment on that. All I can say is that it's open 6 days a week, and obviously there's a strong community in support of the market, and also the market traders have a forum which we engage with through our colleagues in the economy team. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Councillor Harcourt.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, there has been a lot of work done with the market traders down there, and an incredible amount of work and energy has gone into the regeneration of North End Road and the market. I've been involved in a lot of that in my previous position in this council, and Cooma Place and discussions around Cooma Place, which is what we're actually here to discuss tonight, came up more than once in terms of facilities and such like. And I also recall the times when market traders were having to move right the way down Lily Road with their barrows and things at the end of the day. So the call for more local storage is something that has come up. But more specifically, we're retaining the 27 cycle parking spaces plus the extra 20. Is that right? So
that's
47.
Correct,
yeah. Okay, that's great. And how many car parking spaces are lost?
There'll be 7 spaces that will be lost as a result, leaving 14 instead of 21.
And what generally is that car park particularly well used? When I've been down there, it hasn't been particularly well used. I remember having to have special signage put up directing people to it.
I mean, I'm sure that on certain days it probably gets more demand than others. Sure. I wouldn't like to say, but certainly its proximity to the North End Road means it's available. But it's PTAL 4. So good public transport accessibility, so people don't necessarily have to arrive by car. So, yeah.
And finally, the design of the cycle hub is the same as the one under the flyover, isn't it?
That's correct, yes.
I suppose I shouldn't really make comments about design, but shall I just say, if you'll excuse the pun, it's a bit pedestrian.
Okay, Councillor Walsh.
Thank you, Chair. Just kind of building on that last point about the design of the space. You mentioned that it's vinyl. Obviously, there's going to be something that's quite exposed to all of the elements. How confident are you in the long-term wearability of it? I'm just conscious of things like, obviously, vinyl tends to get sun-bleached on occasion, and that could detract from the quality of it in the longer term. Are you confident this is a design that will maintain itself and remain aesthetically pleasing?
Actually, Roy, just before you answer, could you go back to the slide showing the materials? Yeah, just this one, please. Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, this obviously shows an image of what it would look like. And I think the reason why I was going to go to the previous one is because it shows the existing structure that's under the flyover in situ, and that's been there for some time now. It's powder coated and it's vinyl, which is quite durable. So the materials have been chosen quite carefully, and it's a design that's proven to be, very, very good in this locality underneath the flyover. So it's not something that's caused a problem.
Approximately how long has that one under the Hammersmith flyover been in place?
I didn't get involved in the application, but I do remember that it was granted in 2021, and it's probably been there for at least 18 months, I would imagine. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, do we have any other questions? No further questions? Okay, thank you, Roy. We can move to a vote. First, we'll be voting on whether recommendation 1 in the report is agreed, and that is on page 11. So I will start with Councillor Harcourt. Will you be voting for, against, or not voting?
For.
Councillor Harvey?
For.
Councillor Sislus?
For.
Councillor Walsh?
For.
Councillor Carmel?
For.
And I'll also be voting for. So recommendation 1 has been approved. Now we move on to voting on recommendation 2, which is also on page 11. Councillor Harcourt?
For.
Councillor Harvey?
For.
Councillor Sislus? For. Councillor Walsh?
For.
Councillor Carmel?
For.
And I'll also be voting for. So that application has been approved. Thank you very much. Now we move on to item 5, which is Shepherd's Bush Market. And can I ask the presenting officer, John Sanchez, to please introduce the report whenever you're ready? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to run through the presentation of this application in relation to the redevelopment of the site. I'll also summarise the proposal and comments received. Before I start, I would like to draw the members' attention to the addendum. Just some clarification. There are some amendments to some of the conditions which are listed on page 1 of the addendum. I also wish to draw the members' attention to the heads of terms, which again includes some amended wording to some of the clauses. And in addition, there are 3 extra headings. One relates to an obligation and contribution towards Transport for London for infrastructure works at Shepherd's Bush Overground Station. And the other 2 obligations relate to capturing public access to ground level public ground on the site, and for the developer to safeguard the retention of number 48 Goldhawk Road. Next, I just wish to draw the members' attention to some late representations that have been received. One has been from 103 Bateman Close, which is an objection, highlighted a number of points which are already referred to in the report, relating primarily to threats to the diversity of the market, oppose the proposals until strict planning obligations are agreed. Two, by the developer relating to leases and rents. Disrepair of the railway arches have not been addressed. Inadequate proportion of the development is secured for long-term affordable housing. And a second staircase be added to the design of the residential building. A representation has also been received from the former chair of the Shepherd's Bush Market Traders Association. Again, referring to that the proposal is similar to the 211 application, that businesses will obviously be affected by their Transport of London leases, that the tenants will be offered weaker and lesser tenancy agreements, and development will have an adverse impact on the culture and ethnicity of the Shepherd's Bush market. And lastly, we've received a representation from Hammersmith Society. They've referred to their letter of the 30th of August. Now, this letter is listed in the representations received and is summarised in paragraph 4.49 of the committee report. The planning application was submitted to the council in May 2023. For the development summarised on the slide and the description of the development. The application is accompanied by an environmental impact assessment, which has been considered alongside the other supporting documents and plans which are summarised in the committee report. In September 2020, U Capital became the majority owner of Shepherd's Bush Market and the land next to it, known as Ode Laundry Yard. As summarised in section 4 of the report, the council consulted extensively and have received close to 250 representations to this application, including 126 individual objections, mostly from residents, relating primarily to matters of design, height, massing and scale of the development, visually dominant and harmful to the character of the Shepherd's Bush Conservation Area, impact on the existing market and conditions for existing market traders, comments relating to existing and proposed leases, rent levels and service charges, low provision of affordable housing, impact on residential amenity, including loss of daylight, sunlight, outlook and privacy, and highway matters. Objections have also been received from the Greenside Residents Action Group, also acting on behalf of residents in Penarder Road, Save Shepherd's Bush Market Campaign Group, the West London Resistance Collective. And in addition to this, we've received 103 letters of support, almost 50% from market traders, together with letters of support from the Shepherd's Bush Traders Association, the West London Chambers of Commerce and Imperial College London. This slide identifies the designation of the site. So the site itself is located within the White City Opportunity Area within the London Plan. It's also designated within the site, the White City Regeneration Area within our local plan. The site has a specific strategic site specification. It's the Shepherd's Bush Market and adjacent land, which is policy WCRA 3. It's located in Shepherd's Bush Town Centre. And with the exception of 15 Penard Road, the site itself is not in a conservation area, nor any of the buildings listed. However, the site adjoins the Shepherd's Bush Conservation Area. The site itself is highly accessible with public transport accessibility level of 6A, which indicates an excellent level. Strategic Policy WCRA 3 states that the Council will continue to support and work with traders to ensure the retention and improvement of Shepherd's Bush Market, to provide a more vibrant mix of town centre uses. The policy also states that the development proposals for this site should consider including the old laundry yard in any development scheme and include provision of affordable housing and affordable workspace. The application site covers an area of 1.8 hectares and is roughly triangular in shape. The majority of the site is landlocked behind the shop terraces on Goldhawk Road and the residential terrace of Pennard Road, and to the west by the viaduct serving the underground stations of Goldhawk Road and Shepherd's Bush Market. The site is also bounded by Uxbridge Road and Shepherd's Bush, and Goldhawk Road. And within the viaduct itself, the market includes the market arches with residential dwellings, which are located to the west of the viaduct in Lime Grove. The next slide is an aerial view of the site outlined in red. So to the east of the site and to the rear is the rear of the residential properties on the west side of Pennard Road. So this is numbers 5 to 77 Pennard Road. On the east side of Pennard Road, their rear gardens back onto the large commercial buildings which front Shepherd's Bush Green, which include the Hoxton and Dorset hotels. To the west of the site and beyond the viaduct is Lime Grove. And then Goldhawk Road and Uxbridge Road to the north are part of the borough's strategic road network. In terms of access, existing pedestrian arrangements to the market would be retained, with vehicle egress via Goldhawk Road and vehicles exiting the market on Uxbridge Road. In terms of the old laundry part of the site, number 42 Goldhawk Road, which is owned by the applicant, would be demolished to make way for a vehicle and pedestrian entrance. The former A. Cook Pie and Mash Shop would be retained. This is number 48 Goldhawk Road and will be configured to form a new pedestrian entrance to the new development. Both of the vehicle and pedestrian routes would open up to the rear into a landscape pedestrian shared space with a vehicular route and open spaces that wrap around the buildings. The existing vehicle access via Pennard Road would also be retained for pedestrian and a controlled egress route only for vehicles. Finally, there's an existing access route to the side of number 52 Goldhawk Road, which wraps around the back of the shops on Goldhawk Road itself. Now, this is currently unregistered land. However, despite this being an unresolved issue, the proposals do not impede or limit access to the application site. The proposal relates firstly to the refurbishment works to Shepherd's Bush Market. This will deliver new stalls and shops and facade improvements to the railway arches, plus the redevelopment of the old laundry site. This is the triangular area of land to the east of the market. This next slide shows the application site in terms of how it's divided. So we've got the office building, proposed office building in blue, the yellow, which is the proposed residential building, Goldhawk Yard, which uses the vehicle and pedestrian access of numbers 42 and 48, Goldhawk Road, Pennard Mews, which is the vehicular route, which will also serve the residential properties to the north, including their open space called Pennard Gardens, and then obviously the market, which is obviously a linear market with the market stalls. The existing market extends, as pointed out, from Goldhawk Road to the south to Uxbridge Road to the north. Currently, it contains circa 90 traders in a variety of stalls, small retail units and shops within the railway arches. The existing market space amounts to roughly around 5,200 square meters. Since taking control of the market, the applicant has sought to work with the traders in trying to rejuvenate the market area. The proposals will tidy up the overall layout, install weather protection on the railway side using a protection canopy on the east side, with shops on the ground floor of both the commercial and residential buildings also included, together with the erection of new stalls and groundworks and lighting to create a more sort of coherent and contemporary market, whilst also maintaining its character. There are still ongoing discussions with the traders relating to the final designs of the stalls and the two entrance signs, which are located on Goldhawk Road and Uxbridge Road. Final designs for both these matters are captured as conditions in a recommendation to committee. The next slide shows the proposed layout. So the proposal that's been brought to committee tonight aims to revamp Shepherd's Bush Market with an upgrade and renewal of the market facilities, and includes the delivery of two buildings on the former Old Laundry site, comprising a mixed-use stepped 9-storey commercial building with just over 32,000 square meters of floor space. And on the northern part, it includes a residential building, which is ground plus 5-storey, comprising 40 residential units of mixed tenure, 100% affordable housing. The commercial building comprises an incubator space within the basement, co-working space on the ground floor in the mezzanine, and then standard office floor space on the 7 upper floors. Within the market itself, there's an area which is proposed for the erection of new stalls, which will amount to an additional 497 square meters of market space. So this is a natural uplift in existing retail space within the market. In terms of the shops, shops 24 to 58, these are located on the eastern side of the market. They would be demolished and incorporated into the ground floor of both the residential and the commercial building. Shops 22 to 23, this is located at the northwest end of the market and are a combination of freehold shops and shops owned by the landlord. They would each be given £10,000 for construction budget works to improve their units. The proposal seeks to replace the existing canopy. So the image here to the right shows the proposed canopy. So this will be a more consistent and continuous canopy structure extending the full length of the viaduct. And it will be constructed out of toughened solar-coated laminated glass, and to ensure robustness and to protect the traders and visitors. Next two slides show the two buildings in context with the surrounding areas. So the building to the south, which is the one on the left, this is the commercial building. And as you can see, it's designed in a series of steps. Similarly, the building to the north, which is the residential building, has a series of bays, and the top floor is set back. Again, this is a slide just looking southwards. So as mentioned before, the floor layout of the proposal, the ground floor includes the replacement shop units, which are the ones in pink. The ground floor commercial use will have two main lobby areas, one on the south elevation, one on the east elevation. The servicing yard to the north, and then just beyond that is the residential block. The plan to the right-hand side shows a typical layout, office layout. The next two slides show the basement layout. So the space in yellow is the lab space or incubator space, with the ancillary facilities including cycle storage in green. And then the plan to the right-hand side shows the proposed roof plan, which will be predominantly a green-blue roof, and will also include the plant area and some PVs as well. The next slides just show some images of the proposed commercial building. So the building itself is a predominantly concrete frame building with brickwork on the lower level. Here you can see the series of steps as you go further up the building, and on the west side you can see the retail units relating to the market and the basement space. A couple more images. So these are taken from within the development site itself, within site identified as Pennard Mews. So this is looking northwards, and this is looking to the west. Next series of images are CGIs taken from the townscape and heritage document. So these are views of the commercial building, which will be visible from views. So these two views are views of the building from Pennard Road. But then as you move along Pennard Road, so this is the view looking northwards, so to the entrance at 15 Pennard Road, and this is, I think, taken roughly from outside 44 Pennard Road. The views of the commercial building reduce. These next views are taken from Goldhawk Road. Again, as you move westward along Goldhawk Road, the views of the building obviously alter. And again, I think it's important to emphasize that the building does step back on all three elevations. This is the view of the building set behind the commercial frontage on Goldhawk Road, taken from the junction at Wells Road. Next two views are from to the west, so from Lime Grove, and the view on the right-hand side is from Scots Road. The residential block, as pointed out, comprises of 40 residential units, a mixture of social rent and intermediate. The top floor is set back. 90% of the units are family units, so that's 2-bedroom and above. Again, similarly, 90% of the units are dual aspect. 10% of the units, that's 4 units, are wheelchair design units that will be fitted out from the outset. 2 of those are on the ground floor and 2 are on the 4th floor. In terms of the materiality, it's predominantly brick building with a series of bays and balconies. There's a communal, 2 communal spaces with serving the residential block. One on the east side to the rear of the between the building and the rear of the properties in Pennard Road, and on the west side on the podium level, 1st floor level, facing the viaduct. Again, these 2 slides just show the building in context to its height. As I know there's been reference to the overall height of the buildings in the representations. The overall height of the commercial building is 36.75. The reference to, there's a reference obviously to the commercial building being 42 metres high. That's the OAD height. So if you take obviously the ground floor, which is at 5 OAD, obviously the overall height of the building, including the plant, from ground level to its highest point is 36.75 metres. In the case of the residential building, and this includes the parapet wall, the overall height is 21 metres. But the height of the building to the top of the habitable floor level, so this is the level that's applicable when looking at the fire strategy, is 16.6 metres. So it's below the 18-metre threshold. And lastly, this is just an image showing SWEP analysis. So as pointed out, the ingress to the site will be off via the demolition of 48 Goldhawk Road. This will form a vehicle and pedestrian entrance. It will be gated with the gates recessed back 11 metres from the back edge of the pavement. And then in terms of the image on the right-hand side shows the SWEP path for a large vehicle from Pennard Road. It's a right-hand turn only, given that Pennard Road is a one-way street. Next, I wish to bring Ian Diaz, who's the council have appointed an independent daylight sunlight consultant to review the daylight sunlight assessment, given the sensitivity that was raised during the representations that we received on the planning application. So Ian's just going to take you through his analysis of the daylight sunlight report.
Good evening. This slide shows a plan view of the existing site massing. The context, with the context of neighbouring properties, direction of north is off to the right of the image. Closest applicable residential properties for daylight and sunlight review include numbers 5 to 69 Odds Pennard Road to the east of the site, Goldhawk Road properties to the south of the site, and in particular, Pennard Mansions and numbers 34 and 36 to 38. To the west of the site, on the opposite side of the railway viaduct, properties primarily on Lime Grove and Gainsborough Court. This slide also shows the various 67 number amenity areas, sort of garden areas, etc., that have been reviewed in reference to the BRE Guide standard sunlight test for amenity. Those areas indicated in yellow provide the existing area that has the ability to receive 2 hours or more of sunlight on the 21st of March equinox, which is the test date. Move to the... This slide shows the proposed view in plan, again, with neighbouring context. This slide also shows the same 67 amenity areas that have been reviewed in reference to the BRE Guide sunlight test for amenity. Those areas indicated in yellow now represent the area in the proposed scenario that have the ability to receive 2 hours or more of sunlight on the 21st of March equinox. To meet BRE Guide default target criteria, either after the reduction, so the shift change from existing to proposed, the area is to have still the ability to have 2 hours or more on the 21st of March to at least half of the overall amenity area. But if it falls below that, the reduction is for up to a 20% reduction. I appreciate you can't compare the two yellow areas directly, but if I showed you the analytical analysis, from the 67 amenity areas, 61 would meet the BRE default target criteria. For the 6 that do not meet, 3 would be considered as minor adverse reductions. The remaining 3 number have greater reductions, and their localities are indicated by a turquoise arrow. This slide depicts the existing massing on sites, which is very limited. For neighbouring windows that are not obstructed or recessed, many experience high levels of daylight for an urban context. This depicts the proposed massing volume. The larger commercial block has been especially tiered or stepped down on the side facing Pennard Road to seek to mitigate some of the effects of the Pennard Road properties. By this tiering, the greater massing of the commercial block in comparison to the smaller residential block has been moved further away as we increase with height from the Pennard Road properties, and this helps to mitigate the impact of the larger commercial block. Given such limited massing on site, for any meaningful development massing, some departures or transgressions to the BRE Guide default target criteria is in part inevitable, especially when some windows have high levels of existing daylight, less ordinarily associated with an urban context. The site is within an opportunity and regeneration area, and this is especially more prevalent that for meaningful massing, we would see some transgressions to BRE target criteria. The left image highlights existing typical daylight vertical sky component levels. I refer to vertical sky component as VSC, and the VSC is effectively the availability of daylight at the center of the window. For the windows in this rear elevation of Pennard Road, which is facing the application proposal, at ground floor, for the end windows on the outrigger, these are typically at a circa 30% or a reading of 30 of VSC at ground floor. And in terms of the window, which is in the recess position, so that's on the sort of main rear elevation further back, we can see that we are falling just into teens around 13 for this recessed position, which has inherent existing daylight restrictions due to the projecting wing walls of both its own outrigger and a neighbouring outrigger. The BRE guide is not mandatory and is a universal reference to all proposed development, regardless of scale or locality. Thus, the guidelines allow for a flexible interpretation, and within the BRE guide, possible application of an alternative target approach. In essence, the default target BRE guide review is for consideration of reductions in daylight or sunlight. However, for an alternative target approach, the focus can incorporate on actual retained levels of daylight and sunlight in the proposed scenario. The planning authority have agreed to this alternative target approach of retained values, though reductions are also reported and have still some relevance. Alternative targets have been sourced from two areas. Firstly, in reference to the Mayor of London Housing's SPG guide, this highlights opportunity areas with consideration towards alternative targets, with such targets drawing upon comparable residential typologies in the area. Thus, the applicant has reviewed numbers 12 to 74 Evans, Pennard Road, on the opposite side of Pennard Road, with rear elevations backing onto the Hoxton Hotel and Dorset Hotel. That's in the top right image. The established daylight VSC levels for these windows are provided in the bottom right-hand side tables. It can be seen that for an unencumbered window, not obstructed, at ground floor, the average VSC is circa 15, and for a recessed window at the back of the outrigger, on the main elevation before the outrigger starts, this is circa 7. Consideration has also been given to alternative targets from various appeal cases. Mid-teens has been considered in many instances and has been considered acceptable. A particular useful appeal case related to the Woodlands Nursing Home site in the borough of Lambeth, which concluded retained alternative target benchmarks of a VSC of 16 for bedrooms and 18 for living rooms, which gives greater weight to the importance of living rooms. For this application, consideration of our alternative target criteria for daylight VSC has been utilised as retained alternative targets of 18 VSC for living rooms, 16 for bedrooms. So these levels are higher than the typology analysis on the opposite side of Pennard Road. And these are in reference to non-obstructed windows. For recessed windows, which we indicated on Pennard Road, a VSC of 18, which is considered proportionate at ground floor. Reductions are still also considered in reference to the EIA criteria review. We now move towards a brief summary on the main effects of the proposal upon neighbouring properties. As a snapshot, for daylight VSC review, some 739 out of 933 windows meet BRE target. So that's circa 79% meet BRE target. For daylight distribution, which is the other daylight test, which is of equal importance, and that effectively is how far back direct sky can be seen within the room at working plane, or tabletop height, shall we say. Some 485 out of 573 rooms reviewed meet BRE targets, so that's circa 85%. For those windows rooms not meeting BRE default target, reductions will ordinarily be noticeable to the occupant, and retained levels have also been considered in reference to the alternative targets for these reviews. With focus on main properties having reductions not meeting target, we commence, as in this image, with the Pennard Road properties, and for those properties in particular, number 7 to 55 odds, with rear elevations facing opposite the proposal. For daylight VSC, for ease, I will reference the end windows on the outriggers only, i.e. not in the recessed position. That's because the recessed position has inherent sensitivities because of that locality. So for the unobstructed windows on the end of the outriggers, reductions are applicable as follows. At ground floor, reductions range minor to major adverse. However, for alternative target consideration, for those properties with a greater reduction than minor adverse, all would retain a retained value meeting the alternative target, except for 7 properties. In the majority of instances, for these 7 properties, there is inherent sensitivities to some form of existing projecting structure beyond those windows, which will limit the daylight VSC. The BRE recognises larger VSC reductions may be unavoidable in some instances. At first floor, again, the end windows within the outrigger, many reductions beyond the BRE guide, but retained levels are typically in excess of a VSC of 20, so above the alternative target. And again, the second floor windows above that, reductions could be considered as moderate adverse, but retained levels are in their circa mid-20s. For daylight distribution, ground floor main windows served by rear windows, which are the ones that would be unobstructed or unencumbered windows, would meet BRE guide except for 5 properties where typical major adverse impact, but some of these rooms are effectively single aspect and relatively deep. Again, the BRE recognises that greater losses in daylight distribution may occur in such instances. At first floor, reductions are typically major adverse. These relate more to bedrooms. 12 number rooms are left with less than half the area able to see direct sky. However, as highlighted, these are anticipated that majority of bedrooms, and the BRE guide does recognise that daylight distribution is less important to bedrooms. At second floor, again, some significant reductions, but all rooms retain at least half daylight distribution to the proposed, and again, anticipated to be bedroom use. Turning now to the properties to the south of the site, to highlight is Pennard Mansions, has some limited daylight levels to existing windows in the light well or the internal wall return. This is indicated by the 2 sort of vertical arrows, just highlighting that daylight is already restricted given that context. But those are some of the windows that would be facing towards the proposal. In terms of VSC, daylight VSC, adversity relates to 2 number living kitchen dining rooms, which would have minor adverse reductions. 8 number kitchens, although these kitchens are limited in size and below what the Mayor of London's SPG would ordinarily consider habitable, as unlikely being of a size for dining within, given sort of relatively short-term occupancy on that basis. There's also 4 bedrooms with minor to major reductions. For daylight distribution to these rooms, there is a minor adverse to 1 living dining room and 1 kitchen. For number 34, which this is a Google image which doesn't show the completed development, but the completed development is just shown in the sort of bubble image next to it. This comprises of 3 studio flats. They will have major adverse reductions to daylight VSC, and retained levels will be below the alternative target criteria. Daylight distribution, however, would be typically minor adverse reductions. To the relatively new build property adjacent at 36 to 38, This has 3 one-bedroom flats facing the proposal. This would directly look upon the sort of end elevation of the commercial block. And so we are seeing major adverse reduction to daylight VSC and retain levels below the alternative targets. Reductions to daylight distribution would also be minor adverse. However, similar to number 34, we would just highlight that the windows are very close to the boundary, and the BRE recognises some limitations to daylight may occur as a result because windows are so close to the boundary. But it is acknowledged that there would be major adverse significance to this particular property. These properties are to the Wester site. Generally limited impacts with substantial windows and rooms meeting BRE target criteria. Impacts are reduced because there is already some existing obstruction from the viaducts, railway viaducts. There's also, these properties are generally further away than the others we have referenced. And also the closest properties have fewer windows facing site, which has probably resulted from the viaduct situation. Just to add a quick note on sunlight to neighbouring dwellings. So neighbouring properties have been considered in terms of sunlight reductions to all habitable rooms served by windows which face within 90 degrees of south, which is the BRE criteria. This would then relate to review of properties, the rear elevations of the properties on Pennard Road, Pennard Mansions, which had those side elevation windows, and 12, 13 and 14 Gormont Terrace, which is also just referenced because those windows just fall within capture for analysis. Main focus for analysis review is upon living rooms. And we summarise the following, that in terms of the Pennard Road properties, for anticipated living rooms served by windows facing the site and relating to windows that are non-obstructed, i.e. non-recessed, reductions typically meet BRE default target criteria on a room basis, excepting for a small number of isolated living rooms for winter hours. There may be a reception room within this sort of recessed position, which does have more significant reductions, but that may not be the main living rooms to these properties. For 121 to 28 Pennard Mansions on Goldhawk Road, main living rooms would ordinarily not be applicable for review because the rear elevation is facing in a broadly north-facing elevation. However, the windows within the west-facing elevation, which we showed in the image before, some of these do serve living rooms. There are 2 living rooms with reductions in annual probable sunlight hours not meeting BRE guidelines. Reductions of circa 30% and 50% respectively. Winter hours as met. And then for the Gormont Terrace, 12, 13 and 14, isolated reductions of winter hours. Number 13 and has some isolated reductions to annual probable sunlight as well. Both reductions are circa 30%. The overall sunlight results present reductions. In a majority of instances, reductions would meet BRE guidelines in consideration of main living rooms that are served by non-recessed windows. There are some higher reductions to bedrooms, but there is not a target set for such rooms as considered less important to sunlight provision for living rooms. Just turning briefly to daylight and sunlight within the residential proposal, we see that 83% of the new habitable rooms analysed would meet daylighting targets for the given room use. For the 20 number rooms not meeting daylight target, most are relatively close, except for or still considered reasonable, except there is some significant shortfall to two numbered living rooms, as these are single aspect. But the main front living area, because it's a living, kitchen, dining room combined, but the main front living area is still considered reasonably daylit. And there's also 4 bedrooms that have significantly below target, but these are represented as smaller bedrooms within a 2-bedroom flat. Within the dwellings, all are meeting target for sunlight provision, and sunlight availability to the amenity area of the ground floor public amenity realm meets BRE target as well. That concludes the summary on daylight and sunlight.
Thank you very much, Ian. Yes, John, if you'd like to make some final sentences.
So just summing up the presentation, officers have considered a number of the issues that have been raised in terms of the representations that have been received in relation to the market traders, with regard to residential amenity, as pointed out by Ian DS around daylight, sunlight and overshadowing. We've obviously taken into consideration the design and impact on heritage assets, along together with crime, fire safety and highway matters. The proposals themselves would contribute to affordable housing in the borough, provide extensive benefits including new jobs. An obligation of 2.8 million has been secured towards local infrastructure and local community fund. Section 106 will also contribute towards highway improvements within the vicinity. There's the obligation that I referred to earlier towards Transport for London for works at Shepherd's Bush Overground Station. There's contributions towards the monitoring of the development around the travel plans, the construction logistics plan, the air quality dust management plan, and delivery and servicing plan, together with other related obligations concerning wheelchair accessible units, the provision of affordable workspace and community facilities within the commercial building. There's a carbon offset payment, and there are obligations relating to car permit and the retention of the architects during the construction works. Officers are of the view that the proposals would deliver a good quality architecture, will regenerate this part of White City regeneration and opportunity area, and secure the market and optimize the capacity of the site in terms of delivering new good quality offices, residential accommodation and high quality public realm. So on that basis, the officers are recommending that planning permission be granted, subject to the conditions and the heads of terms set out in section 15 of the report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm now going to call on some speakers. So firstly, I'm going to call on Jake Sims to speak in objection to the application. Jake, if you'd like to come to the table, and you have 5 minutes. Whenever you're ready, if you just press the button for the mic to go green, and then you can begin. It's just the button with the little image of a person. Yep, go ahead.
This planning process has been incredibly undemocratic from start to finish. There has been a complete failure to meaningfully consult both traders and the local community. I could and will go into some of the concerns, but ultimately 5 minutes is not enough to go into the details. I mean, just to briefly touch on, for example, the 2014 public inquiry and 2016 court ruling, which overturned the previous redevelopment attempt and the CPO linked to that. That court ruling has not been mentioned once in the planning officer's report, whereas you would have thought that would be one of the central things that would be considered. I mean, obviously there's the issue of existing traders and retention, but separately from that, 25 traders have left the market since UCapital took ownership. There are others who are planning to retire in the near future. The future traders and making sure that the market is affordable and protecting the character of the market, its affordability, its diversity, that is a crucial point. And there is absolutely nothing in the planning application to protect those future traders and traders not on protected leases. The service charge cap only applies to existing traders. It does not apply to future traders. U Capital can increase the rent by an unlimited amount for traders who are not on protected leases, which will be the majority of traders in the market in the very near future. This planning application would be the end of Shepherd's Bush Market as an affordable and diverse market serving the local community. I want you all to realise the gravity of the decision you are making today. To briefly touch on the issue of the railway arches, another key issue considered in the court ruling, one of the central reasons why the CPO was overturned. The Council Officer's report makes two factually inaccurate statements. The first one, that the existing condition of the arches is generally sound, which is something that U Capital said to the council and which has been uncritically repeated, despite there being overwhelming evidence that there is serious interior disrepair of the railway arches, whether that's the Parsons Bricker-Hoff report of 2016, again, not mentioned once in the planning application, whether that's the 2016 Court of Appeals judgment, which clearly states the arches suffer from water leaks and lack of maintenance over a long period of time, which has worsened the condition. The second lie, I'm going to call it a lie, in the Council Officer's report is that the repair and condition of the brickwork of the railway arches is the responsibility of TfL, which is an attempt to duck responsibility on this crucial issue. That is not true. The Court of Appeals judgment states very clearly that the defects identified in the Parsons Bricker-Hoff report fall within the owner's responsibility. The Mayor of London in 2016 was asked about this point specifically, as we have highlighted many times in our objections, and stated that Orion, the previous developer and owner, are responsible for the interior curve of the arches, meaning that responsibility is passed to U Capital. Now, they might point to the £10,000 that traders have all been offered. A recent arch was refurbished in the market. It cost more than £80,000. The idea that £10,000 is enough to address this issue is a joke. Has this issue even been considered in the planning officer's report? No. And just to point to one last example, housing, a very critical issue. In the speech we just heard, there was reference to there being housing for social rent in these plans. Again, that is a lie. You can read it in the planning officer's report. There is no housing for social rent. So just to highlight a few quickly of the glaring omissions and inaccuracies in the council's report. But I'm not going to talk more about the planning issues because actually we know from start to finish that the council have not seriously engaged with people responding to this planning application, whether that's the local ward councillors, Zawar Qayyum and Mercy Umar, who just from one person in our group alone, sent 7 emails, only got a reply after the 7th email to say that they would not meet with us, despite many of us being living in their ward. And actually, in Mercy's reply, she stated that the overwhelming majority of traders have now signed new leases, which again is a lie because the new leases are still being negotiated and traders have not signed them. So from start to finish, we've seen an incredibly undemocratic process. The council leadership, not just the local ward councillors, the council leadership have repeatedly refused to meet us. We started a petition which got 600 signatures from local residents. Again, not mentioned once in the planning officer's report. You would have thought that at the very least they would make a token gesture to reference it if they were even giving a veneer of taking this process seriously. And so, yeah, it's not subtle. We're not stupid. We know a stitch up when we see one.
Okay, Jake, thank you very much. If you'd like to return to the audience. Excuse me, could I ask you to please remain quiet so that we can... Okay. Can I ask security to please escort these people from the room? I'm going to adjourn the meeting, and if security could please escort these people from the room. The meeting is adjourned.